All right, everybody.
Doggone it.
Thank you so much for attending the West March November 2023 Board of Directors meeting. Thank you all for being here. We're going to fly through some of the simple stuff. The first one is the call to order and the roll call. I'm going to ask Baron Scorch to call this meeting to order, if they please.
I call this meeting to order because I please.
That's pretty official.
Did I do it right?
Official. We haven't had a monarch call a meeting to order in a bit, so excuse me for having that fine statement be done. Thank you, Scorch. I appreciate it. Our secretary, Chicken, is not here at the moment, so I'm going to do the roll call. Please call your name out if you please call you are here when I call your name out. Andy Brown.
Present.
Brian Ouellette, that's me. Paul Wilkins.
Paul Wilkins.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
present.
you. Scorch Garcia.
Presente.
Tirza Brown.
Here.
Thank you. James Anderson.
Here.
Wonderful.
Here's has an H at the end.
My apologies. Thank you for that. Is there anybody else on the board of directors in attendance that I am missing? I'm scrolling through the list. It doesn't look like it. Although that is probably going to change quite soon. Ethan Kopich or Sebastian, thank you for being here. Benjamin Smith.
Hello.
Oh, I forgot Kopich. Sorry. Frankie.
Demento.
Can you say your last name, Frankie?
Yeah, it's Demento.
Sorry. And Chris Sapolu. We can now go back to using amp guard names. Glad about that.
Dope.
Okay. Now, with guests and monarchy members in attendance, we have a wonderful population of talented individuals here. A few that I'd like to call out eventually, not at this very moment. We have to approve a reading of the last meeting's minutes. Would anybody like to approve the minutes without reading them?
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
I love it. I love it. Hey, look, here's the meetings, the October meeting minutes. They're right here. So look.
Oh my zogs.
We're going to scroll through. There they are. Paul thinks Jody did everything wrong, just like he did. That's my favorite part. And there we go. So these minutes are posted on the West March Discord. They are actually double posted, so please feel free to read them at your own wishes. Do we have a second for approving the minutes?
I seconded it.
Thank you very much for that. As always, with our November meeting, there is no mute button unless I choose to mute you. Please speak up at any point in time. This is an open forum for everybody. Let's get to the first part of the agenda. We are all going to welcome the new monarchy with violence. Perhaps it depends upon how he chooses to respond. So, do you have anything that you'd like to say, Monarch Scorch?
This part of the job sucks, but it's got to be done, and I'm going to do it with you.
That's wonderful. I appreciate it. And I assure you that these meetings may be a bit more enjoyable than you've experienced in the past, unless the next part of the meeting goes bad. So,
I have a question for them before you move on past the greetings.
Do it.
What's up?
Hey. Hey, Scorch, as a vice president, I would like to officially ask you if everyone can get a attendance color credit for attending this meeting.
Yes.
Woohoo.
Great. Color's what I'm working on.
Well, we can bypass the second one since Tirza jumped me.
Sorry, the minutes or the agenda is like a half screen, so I can't see anything below what you're actually typing right now.
Oh no, is that true for everybody?
No, I can
it's
see
because
not just
she's on a phone.
I can see
okay.
your document, and then I can see the West March BoD wiki page behind it, along with your Kingdom of Cade tab.
I can't see anything because I'm being a responsible driver.
Okay, if anybody can't see something properly, please let me know and I can narrow the screen share.
Unless you're being a good boy and driving correctly.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Everybody that is here is going to be very excited to get color credit for this meeting. So I will be sending more work to the Kingdom Prime Minister. Mwahaha.
Yay. Sorry
Cool.
about jumping the gun. Just literally didn't see it.
No,
Yes,
it actually
send
works
me
out.
that list.
I think that worked out perfectly. Okay, since you jumped the gun, it is your fault. We have to go to the next one, an audit update. There is a certain somebody that may have done an audit on our funds, and we have some good news, don't we, Tirza?
Do we have good news? I don't know. I just made the audit.
And what is your thought process about the wonderful audit that you found?
Mainly I hate accounting systems and how they throw up random codes for transactions. But
Valid.
that might not be where you're trying to go with this. I'm not sure.
No, we'll just go ahead and open the floor to you, and I'm going to pull up the audit right here.
Okay.
Thank you very much for preparing this audit. We're going to scroll down to the very bottom here and look at the grand total of funds. Is there anything that you would like to point out about this? Is there anything that was concerning? Is there anything that we need to work on?
It would be nice if some of the transactions had more details. Which like I had to talk to Scoot for ones that I had questions on. But stuff like Ye Olde Spice Shop took a while to figure out why we were sending money to Ye Olde Spice Shop. Google didn't help as that came up as a tea shop. And I wasn't really sure why we would have been spending $500 at a tea shop. But then it ended up that some food place has the same name as a tea shop in Old Town near us. So that was why that was coming up as a weirdness, and it was food, which 500 for food is a pretty legitimate expense. 500 for tea, not so much.
So for the record, part of that was because what I gave Rose to do the audit was just the bank statements, and I didn't get the ledger opened up until later on in the process. So that's why there was confusion there at first.
Yeah.
I know on like the October 5th one, I did put in the notes that it was Priest of God's food advance.
Mhm.
Right. No, just because she was looking only at the bank statements, not the ledger.
Ah, okay.
That
Yeah.
was the major problem there.
And then it just took Andy a while when I was like, why are we spending $500 at a tea shop? And he's had to open the ledger and find it. It would have been a lot easier if I'd had the ledger. But that's kind of on Andy because I asked him for stuff and he sent me the bank statements only. Not
That
a
was
huge
because I had
criticism.
recently replaced my phone and not logged in.
Yeah, I'm not saying it as a huge criticism, just like
I am.
I
the
know.
ledger, it sounds like had a lot more like information on stuff, but going off the bank accounts was kind of confusing.
I filled in what I could figure out once I took office.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject for 1 second. Westmarch does have a payment request form. This is unofficial because no monarch has backed it and no all thing has been done. But this is available on the Westmarch BoD right here. And it is, what do you want? How much do you want it for? Who is it sending? Why do we need it? Give us descriptions and have the Prime Minister and the monarchs sign off on it. And no funds, in my opinion, and I'm nobody, should be sent out unless we have this form on file. That's my personal belief.
It
I'm
would
done.
be a good decision.
Sounds
It's
like a
always
good idea.
better to have more documentation than less. There is something more I would have liked to do with this audit, which would have been to break down the prepay. You'll notice on it, I just have FOG prepay, but I don't have a breakdown of how many individual like
Oh, I am
tickets
very
are represented?
unhappy with the card servicing that we use for the prepays. I have a
Mhm.
lot of problems with it.
Mhm. My work froze it out in much the same way as this for when we have mass payments. What I usually do for work is I'll have a list of what the charges were. So like basically usually when I'm working with it, it's for probation costs and people get charged different amounts based on what category of probation they're on. And so if I know what the like different numbers that they can get charged for is, I can do the math and figure out, okay, this looks like it's 3 charges for high level, 2 charges for low level, 1 charge for, lowest level. But even though I messaged the person who is listed as the event runner on Facebook, and then they sent me to somebody else, and I messaged them. And then they said to ask Thistledown, which was a little weird to me because that seems like something the event runners should have the information on. Nobody seems to have tracked what the different levels of expense for tickets were for the different months. And now that the website's down, the website it was listed on, like I can't go there to look at it. So that's kind of problematic. It would be good if we have events to have them, I don't know, send a screenshot of their fee schedule. Because that would make it a lot easier to come back months later and be like, okay, how many people purchased a ticket, for the day pass as opposed to the, week pass on, 7/15.
Milan, your note is a little incorrect there. Expenses we were fine at tracking. It is only the incoming and the fees associated with the incoming that was
Thank
a
you.
problem.
Yeah, because like I can look at the charges and see like how much was entered every day as a lump sum, but I have no idea of how many like tickets does that represent. Is that, 4 week passes or 1 day pass,
And the sign-ins didn't have a differentiation between the two, did they?
No,
that
they
might help.
Probably not.
James, who is our card servicing provider?
Wix.
We did
Okay.
get a printout though of every transaction that happened and like, who spent what amount of money. So that did come out, but how it got transferred from the web page through Wix into the bank account was very obtuse.
Like I said, for accounting systems, it seems to be doing it in a very normal way where it just sends a lump sum and that's everyone's payments for the day.
Right. But what you
But
need,
if I had a fee schedule, I could figure out, for the most part, what that represented.
I tried to look into Wix's fee schedule, and I could not make it match with the payment logs and the disbursement logs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can
more
we use a different
specifically,
service? Somebody else go over it. My bad.
I was gonna say, well, specifically, so what ended up happening was the web page went through Wix, and Wix's fees matched what they said, and they even gave us a breakdown of like how much each dollar was and how much of that went to the fees. But then it was stored on the Wix web page, and to transfer it from the Wix page to our pay to like our bank account, it went through another third party, and their fees did not match what they said. I forget the name of that third party off the top of my head. And that's the one where it became super obtuse, where they would group up, 1 to 3 days worth of transactions and send them all over. So you'd see $1,024 went in, but you didn't know like which $1,024.
so is the fear and suspicion is that these companies are taking us for a ride?
It's not necessarily a fear or suspicion, but it's an inability to verify either way.
Understood.
Like they could be 100% on the board, but we have no way of knowing because we can't match the amount of money that we are supposedly taking in to the amount of money that we received and be able to look at it and go, hey, this is how much it should be. Would we possibly be able to request an audit from that company?
I believe it would have to go through the person who'd set up the website, which I think was still I'm
Blood Wolf?
blanking on her name, I'm sorry.
Probably Blood Wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Which
Well-
It would be nice if we didn't have to rely on third-party data for our own funding as well. If there's a way to get a notification of receiving a fee or having outgoing funds, then we should be able to track that ourselves.
Was it just the accounting that they were doing, or were they actually was it a third party transferring funds?
It sounds like it was a third party transferring funds to and forth from us from
Yes.
ticket purchases. And if we're the only way we're tracking it is through what Wix is telling us, that seems like a breakdown in communication.
Yeah. And that's what it was. It was Wix had very good logs of like the money that went into the Wix account and how much the Wix fees were, and like therefore the amount remainder. But it was transferring it from the Wix account to our bank account. They used another company.
Was
and
that
that one,
Wix
the
that
fee-
used the other company, or did we decide to do that?
Wix
pretty sure it's
offered it
Wix that
as a service that they partnered with this other company to do it. I didn't investigate like the whole methodologies. I just looked at the ones that was chosen.
That seems like, what are we paying Wix fees for if they're not transferring the money to us?
Because Wix doesn't do the bank interface. They just do the collection and storage on their webpage.
And the only way to transfer it out from the Wix account would be through using a third party, unfortunately.
Right now, yes. They have like a open request ticket thing where they say they might support it in the future, but they don't support it now.
Are we mandated through using Wix?
no, it was that was just how that website was set up this particular event.
Yeah, we used
But,
Choice.
I believe Blood Wolf was actually he'd offered to pay for it for like a year. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look.
Wells Fargo uses Zelle, and we also have a PayPal account.
It's true.
I'm going to pause for one brief moment. Talon or Benjamin Smith, would you like to jump in really quickly?
I was just saying that I have to leave in the near future, but regarding one of the future items coming up about the Spanish waiver, I started working on it and realized I was in over my head because even though I do know lots of academic Spanish, I don't have any experience with legal terms.
It might be something Westmarch should consider getting an actual interpreter for.
Or just someone that natively speaks both languages.
Well, you need someone
That
who
was the
natively
thing is
speaks both
I
languages and
speak them
has
at a fluent level, but not my Spanish legal knowledge is about the same as my English legal knowledge, which is to say not very high.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That's one reason that for my job, they will pay you more if you speak another language, because getting someone who speaks the language is nice, but being able to tell someone that, you know, your account is defunct because your court order says that you're mandated this or that or the other thing. Most people don't know how to say court order in Spanish.
All right.
Is there a waiver that exists somewhere else in AmpGuard that is in Spanish that we could potentially borrow for the time being?
That is a great question, and I have not looked.
I did try to look like online for example waivers in Spanish.
Mhm.
I couldn't find any good ones. The one good one that I did manage to find that didn't look like it had been run through Google Translate was from Colombia, which would be good Spanish, but not necessarily good law.
Right. It might also not be the dialect that we need either.
All right. Talon, thank you very much for that. I think we should definitely discuss perhaps seeing if we can how expensive would it really be to hire
a lawyer?
How expensive would it be to hire an interpreter to translate the existing waiver into Spanish. I think that's a cost we might potentially be able to eat happily.
I know that the interpreter fee schedule form that my office has for when we need an interpreter for court and we don't have one is around 150 for a court session, but I'm not sure how that would go over for a document. I mean, it might
They
be
would-
about the same, it might be way more expensive.
From what I understand, things like that pay by the hour. So if it's an hour's worth of work and they want 150 an hour, that feels reasonable to me.
Yeah, for
Expect it to be
the
2 hours.
court, they have agreements, so sometimes it's as much as 15 minutes and they get 150. Sometimes it's 3 hours and they get 150. We have kind of like a special arrangement, but it's at least a baseline.
I'm going to take charge of looking up cost for translation of
Okay.
waiver.
Appreciate it.
And I will report that in earlier than the next meeting. Talon, thank you very much for doing that. I want to mention that Talon has also been working on a alternative Kapora, and regardless if it gets adopted or not, I want to say thank you for the efforts that you've been putting in, Talon. As scribe, you've been taking that to heart and actually been moving on it, and I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I don't know if you have to go at the very moment, but I'm gonna step back to the audit.
I do. I'll catch y'all later.
Take care, man. All right. Ethan was very kind enough to post the Wix accepting online payments directly to your bank account. So to go from Wix to Wells Fargo or PayPal, you have to use Choice, which is a third-party financial transfer form. According to this, Connecting Choice is your payment provider. They charge this much per transaction with a monthly fee. This screams to me, heck no. And I didn't say heck. So I looked up, and I'll just pull this over here too. Wells Fargo uses Zelle. So you can use Zelle with Wells Fargo, and there isn't a charge. Then we could also simply use PayPal, which has their own charge, of course, but it's probably similar to what we are paying with Wix. So possibly, and I'm not saying that we need to do this, but we need to do research into how should we accept payments moving forward and find something that isn't going to charge us unnecessary fees.
Is that,
Uh,
do we feel that the board of directors should mandate to the autocrats use this? Because typically that has been left up to the autocrat to decide so far.
So I wouldn't say that we have the authority to tell them which one to use, but I
don't think we
feel
do either.
I do feel we have the authority to say this one did not provide us the financial information we need to be, solidly sure that they're not fudging the numbers.
I feel it's reasonable to say that the BOD doesn't have the authority to mandate anything, but they're well within their rights to have a conversation and explain how it is or is not beneficial to the kingdom.
We are supposed to act as fiduciaries for the organization. And it would be our job to say, hey, the decision you made was a really bad decision. Perhaps you shouldn't do it again.
I
think
sorry.
I think it would be easy to include in the Kapora a line in the event section that gives us more oversight of event finances.
Well, we do have the treasurer on the board of directors.
Yes.
Well, I also we could include a line in the Kapora that says something to the effect of the BOD has oversight for reviewing the finances of events.
We do have that. I have it posted up right here. Work closely with the Prime Minister and monitoring Kingdom funds is pretty much there. But we also do, I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase it. We follow all California laws, and as of California code, the California Corporations Code, these are what the board of directors do: the duty of care, the duty of inquiry, and the duty of loyalty, and to follow investment standards. So everything here is technically part of our corpora, whether we like it or not. And we are supposed to, let me find a good phrase in here. This legalese, I swear to goodness. If only Victoria could read this for us.
If only we had a lawyer on the BOD.
If only we had a Victoria.
Oh wait, I think she's here.
She is here.
I am.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to read.
We're trying to
How about
find
you just
something.
send her the link? Just send her the link.
That's a brilliant idea. Victoria, I'm gonna drop this in the chat.
There you go.
Dope.
And then she can do the legal parsing.
What we're trying to do is find something in here that the director believes to be the best interest of the corporation, blah, 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 blah. Basically, we want to say, where does the board of directors have something that would say, hey, we need to do this in the best interest of the 501c7 social group, is what we're trying to find. Something specific. Basically,
Our reviewing of contracts, because I feel like right now what we're doing is reviewing the contract between the third party and us, and they have an unclear fee schedule that makes it iffy.
it's a horrible fee schedule.
Victoria, did you hear the entirety of the kerfuffle that's kerfuffling right now?
Bits of it. So my understanding is we're looking into having some kind of authority to look at, is it for banks? Which banks we use for our funding of?
So go ahead, Rose. You're fine.
So what happened is we had a company that we worked with to receive funds from Feast of Gods. And that part went okay. They received funds, had the amount that they said they'd charge us, very viewable, very decipherable. But apparently they do not transfer money to our bank accounts or us. They just hold the money. So we had to go through a third party to transfer it to our bank accounts. And they do not list their charges that they do clearly. We could not match up how much was said that we took in with how much they actually gave to us. It's unclear if the difference is fees that are just being hidden or what, but it's using that party that is coming into question, and the question of whether the BOD has the right to say, hey, that place did not seem to, give us what we need to keep financial records, so let's not use them in the future.
We want to come up with a standardized method of payment for every event going forward that is within the best interest of the
Well, wouldn't that
fiduciary
fall?
shenanigans of the kingdom.
Doesn't that kind of already fall under the duty to follow investment standards?
That's what we were asking, and you found it. You found the answer. Thank you.
I'm just looking. Let me see.
Wasn't that what we were gonna get the IT team to start trying to oversee too?
That's the goal, but the IT team is in its infancy and will probably take some time to get up and running.
This is something that the IT team and the BOD, in my opinion, can work hand in hand on, and that, yes, we as the BOD see the money going in and out. IT team, make it so. These are the methods we want you to use.
Wix charged us twice for funding, and that's what we're trying to avoid moving forward.
Also, the IT team I see as more of maintenance, but not creating contracts and deciding on things. Like usually the IT department maintains what you have, but they don't go out
So-
and say, "Hey, let's
So
use
that's
this."
that's what I'm saying. They're not creating policy, but we say, hey, we're going to start using PayPal from now on. It would be their job to take the guts of the button for PayPal and put it on the website so that it's effective, or
Yeah.
to that sort of thing. They would still be following our directive, but they would be the ones making it accessible to the populace.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the BOD needs to work with them in that regard, not in decision-based things.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think,
for when Azus was talking about the IT team proposal, that he was saying that CA AmpGuard is actually set up to receive payments. And I don't know a lot about it, but if there was something like that where there's not even a contract we need to go, have the BOD oversee, if we're handling it all in-house, then it's less paperwork for everybody.
What were you trying to say, Victoria?
oh, I would agree with any conversation that was previously had with regard to number 4 on duty to follow investment standards. It seems like if the BOD has an obligation to, there was a specific phrase that I thought was important. Let me find it again. We must comply with the duties of due care and reasonable inquiry, may rely upon others, and may delegate its investment powers as permitted. So I feel like we should have a stronger sort of say as to how the funds are distributed and where they go and who transfers them.
So that's distribution. Does that also count for how how the income comes in, like the actual method of transference of funds? If I said that correctly, I'm not confident I did.
That because it says we may rely upon others and may delegate its investment powers. I think if that delegation is only specific to, okay, we're delegating you to have these funds, but we're expecting you to use them in this way and under these factors, I think that probably would work. I'm not positive, but I think that's part of the delegation that we could sort of assert upon others.
Gotcha.
Love it.
So to put this into Scorch's not a lawyer speak, this means that we can reasonably say to an autocrat, hey, autocrat, from this point on, this is the method we're using to get funds. Is that a fair interpretation and understanding of what you're trying to say?
I would think so. I would think that it would be something along the lines of not only this is how we're getting the funds, but we're giving you the funds and this is how we're giving you the funds. And these are the standards for how these funds are to be,
utilized.
I guess, passed on between different hands.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you follow this to the way that we told you, because otherwise it's going to be problematic.
Understood. Okay.
Love it.
What if the BOD, what if we baked into the BOD, into the corpora, a explicit BOD oversight, like a BOD audit of events, and just like when we audited lands, you have to send the information through, and it's up to the BOD to either certify it as successful or unsuccessful or whatnot. I think
feel like the
so.
corpora
In all my time as I don't think it's as formal as I think it should be. In my time as an autocrat, I was always surprised at how much I was responsible for and how little oversight I had. And I always wondered, like in the future, if that would bite us in the ass.
I think it would be, I agree with you. I think it would be safer if there was more oversight by the BOD on autocrats, just to make it very clear that the autocrat isn't the one necessarily that they're running the event, in the sense that the West March has told them that they're allowed to set up all of these things and do all of these things, but ultimately it is a West March event being run by West March, and they have asked this person to just put it together for them.
So the autocrat is the event coordinator and West March is the piggy bank, essentially.
Right. West March is what's liable, not this individual person.
Mm-hmm.
But with that huge separation that we've had previously, if you were talking about ETA, I think to make that clearer, I don't think it'd be a bad thing to put that in the corpora.
I think
This is-
personally that it does already give us some of that responsibility, and part of the problem is the BOD just hasn't been doing it. Because like it
So
does say that we oversee their contracts and are responsible for auditing the events, but like every time in the past that I like asked questions about things that happened at events, I was told, oh, people are too busy to track that.
I asked for audits of Dark Shore and of Feast of Gods. I was unable to receive Dark Shore. Feast of Gods did provide some information that did show they turned a profit, and I was happy with that just because at least we turned a profit, right? We threw a party and we made money.
BOD oversight of events before the events happen is hard and probably going to be contentious, because you do things monthly and an event you have to go with all of the venues and things that come at you, just like the issues that Peace of Gods had. But I think what we need is explicit authority to review after the fact.
Oh
I
no, I
think
agree.
Had that already, but like the issue is we need something like the audit I prepared, where we go back and we look at all of the stuff. And I don't feel like the BODs in the past have made any move to do that, really. They've just kind of been like, hey, did it turn a profit? Cool.
Do we have, we might, but do we have a specific like event audit packet similar to what we do with park audits, where people can just kind of fill in the blanks and say this is what it is and these are the receipts and all that?
Nope.
No, we're working on it. We have a West March payment request form that I'm attempting to implement, and then we are working on a how to autocrat, but that is an older form that has existed for quite some time. So
Events should have ledgers that they have to submit.
I agree.
I completely agree, and I would love to get to that point.
So in the past, I have created a ledger and submitted it to the Prime Minister along with the event money after an event, and we have a specific number of weeks to do that after the event per the Corpora. But I've never had a specific audit process. The ledger and everything contained in the ledger and what the Prime Minister felt was acceptable was always up to me and then up to them. And I've never had any other body review it. And I don't think the Corpora is explicit. The Corpora says the BOD can review contracts. It's not explicit enough that the BOD can review events, has authority over contracts before and after for auditing, etc.
So that's part of the problem, right? It is because we're under California law and that's in the Corpora, but no one's pulling up these California BOD rights, responsibilities, etc.
No, it's in the Corpora. A complete accounting of income and expenses with all receipts from the event must be provided to the West March Prime Minister within 45 days of the end of the event.
And we are, at least with when I was overseeing, they did give me all the receipts. That was not a problem.
I don't feel that it's as much an issue of the Eventocrats not doing enough work in compiling the stuff as much as it is the BOD not telling them exactly what it is that we need and then actually going back and reviewing it like I did with the audit. Like, which part of that is probably because there aren't a lot of people who've been on the BOD who work in the financial sector and do audits. But it's really what we need. We need all of the financial information from the event. We need it presented in ledger fashion, as well as any, really any party that did a financial transaction that was signed into, the BOD treasurer should have access to that so that they can review the statements and get all of the financial information to overlook the stuff.
I hear you.
We're not getting it right now, and that's not because somebody's doing something wrong. It's more because maybe we just haven't had the focus and we haven't had a reason. it could definitely come to bite us back in the backside, of course. But, you know, right here in the Capora, a bid must include proposed budget, including all expenses, source of funding, expected fee due dates, gate and structure. If we don't have a good bid, the event should be considered canceled. That's straight out of our Capora. We've ignored that part because it's just kind of being run as it has been. And
No,
so
most bids come with a estimated budget.
I've seen them.
Bids are
and
very
I've
vague.
seen them, and they are not what I would ever consider accurate or valid.
Why?
For example, I've never seen a fee schedule, and for Dark Shore, we got, hey, this money is due, and we said when, and they said in 3 hours. And, if we didn't pay it, there wouldn't have been a Dark Shore.
I see.
And that is the sort of thing. And we said why, and to their credit, the individual involved was like, oh, the county of Monterey just never got back to us. And I tried to institute for Feast of the Gods that all money should be requested 30 days in advance, and they said that wasn't viable because that's just not how the county of Monterey works.
Yeah, when I actually when I paid for the park for Feast of Gods, I had a conversation with the lady because, you know, why not? And basically, yes, she'd just gotten the numbers available, and also, hi, it was due today. And we could avoid, you know, paying the credit card convenience fee if we would just bring a check in. Well, thanks. We would have to drive to Monterey, or we would have to drive to King City on that day to deliver a check.
Yeah, we're not
Like,
driving 6 hours for that, buddy.
Yeah.
As a side note, it would be a really good idea to find someone we trust in Borehaven and make that a thing.
I was
That
thinking that too.
gives a lot of power to a little park that's new to the kingdom.
We should
Yeah,
have
but
a
it
better
also saves us
relationship.
money.
We should have a better relationship with the county of Monterey, and we should be able to once a year make these type of arrangements for both events. We've done these events for years now. At some point in time, we need to, you know, garner a smidge bit of respect from them.
Yeah,
So
I
we had
why
so
we can't
we
pay in
had-
advance.
we
Go
had
for
a
it, Paul.
great relation.
Hold.
We had a gr-
Go ahead,
No,
Etah.
we had a great relationship with Monterey County for years. Dame Leia specifically developed a first name basis friendship with most of the people in that office. 1 year, 95% of that office turned over. Their fee schedule went from very stable to super chaotic. And we had for a year or two, we actually thought we were going to lose the site before it stabilized a little bit. It's actually less crazy than it was for a little while.
And I
maybe we need to make a visit to that office and sit down and talk with whoever's in charge there, and maybe just get something on record. Like, hey, we do this every year, you know, like
twice a year.
yeah, we do this
Twice a
twice a year, excuse me. Help us out. You know, you don't need to make things more difficult for us. We're giving you money.
Yeah. Especially because we know like a year in advance we're gonna want all this shit. I'm really not sure why they wouldn't let us, sit down, say this is when we're doing it, and then give them money. Why does it have to be like a month before or even like a few weeks before the event?
Because
Which I'm not
everything
saying
always
that's
gets
it.
left to the last minute.
But I mean,
Well, it wasn't always that way with Monterey County.
Paul, you muted yourself, I think. Paul's still muted. I didn't mute him.
That was my fault. The very first event I ran, I paid the on-site employee of Monterey County on Sunday. So it was their policies. All of these weird policies developed later on.
All right. We could definitely chat about this forever. I think the important things that we need to talk about is standardizing payments for events, proper ledger methodologies, And
But
I
I
don't know.
mean, I think Victoria's thing about why did we have land level audit packets for submitting audits and we don't have event audit packets? That should be the real thing, and it should detail everything we need, which, you know, that's the place where requiring a ledger is super important because that's the majority of the kingdom income.
Who created the packets for the land level audits? Do we know?
Fix, I
Oh,
think.
man.
Is there a way that we could contact Fix to just one more time put something
mean,
together, or at least give us the file so we could edit it?
I mean, I could put that together. That's easy.
All right.
I'm sure
Yeah.
Zeus has the file.
Yeah,
Okay.
the file isn't the difficult part. It's mandating that it's a thing that has to be done and then having it put together and officially recognized.
Then going forward with the bid process, that's just going to have to be something that the BOD and the regent at the time has to try to implement.
Well, I don't think it should be part of the bid process because it's an end process. It's like,
No, but by
Well-
putting in this bid, I agree to blank.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we have a concern about the way that folks have been presenting their possible fees and expenditures, we might as well create a pre-event packet that gives us an idea and sort of forces them to put a more detailed spread of what their funds are going to be used for. It wouldn't hurt us. We'd be able to use it to compare to their audit at the end too. Like, well, why did this extra fee come up? Or oh, it looks like you didn't spend as much money as you said you did, or you were gonna, so that's awesome. Like, just, it wouldn't
You
hurt
came in
us.
under budget. Hooray.
Yeah.
Where the fuck
One
did this
thing-
$500 come from?
Right.
Yeah. One thing I would really like to do is, instead of having them every eventocrat create their own ledger, is have a West March ledger that the eventocrats have to use, and you just open a new tab for each new event.
Well, counter that, we've talked in the past about just giving them a pre-prior card that equals to what they bid.
Yeah.
That would, having run an event in the past, that would be so handy.
We were not able to get that for Feast of Athena because Wells Fargo didn't quite have that availability yet, but they said that they would have it soon.
Yeah, after July or June, January, I believe, was
Love
when
it.
they told me they would hopefully have it
Someone's
up.
starting, Jay.
I actually really like the prepaid credit card idea for the bid. I think that's very smart idea.
Mhm.
Can I walk on with one follow-on discussion here? Just as a
Yeah.
quick thing. I'm noticing in here that we actually have rules for how much funding the event is supposed to retain, like above and beyond profits. Have we run that number to make sure that we're not leaving too much money in their account?
Is this are you finding this in the Kapora? Where are you finding this?
Yeah, in the Kapora, it talks about
What, can you tell me what it is?
Yeah, give me one sec. I was just on that. It talks about an event funding 7.4.4.
Got it. It's pulled up on the screen for everybody to read.
Yeah. So at the discretion of the bid team, up to $400 of the net profits above the cost of the event may be retained in the event account to improve future events, and then larger profit retention must be approved by an Alding. I've never seen an Alding for this, so I've just always assumed it was less than $400 of profit.
Here is the ledger right here. There is a Dark Shore account, which I hope people can see. I can try and make this bigger. The
The
Dark Shore
link's
account.
also in the BOD if people want to pull it up themselves.
All right.
It's in the BOD chat on Discord. Sorry.
Perfect. I'll also drop it into the Zoom chat just in case. But there is a Feast of the Gods account. There is a Dark Shore savings account. And then there's the Kingdom Treasury. And so we all have...
And as a note, there is a fourth account, which is a random event that isn't allocated for anything.
It was originally, I have a note on that. It used to be West March Wars.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
It would make a lot of sense to take that and either make it a general event fund for West March, which I would personally prefer, because then West March could help people actually run events and stuff. Or I feel like it should be moved into the other accounts, because right now it's just funds that never have anything happen with it, that if we don't fulfill the criteria that was on the bank statement for keeping free, we could potentially get charges for.
Yeah, we should
That-
move it into the Kingdom Treasury.
That account could be for coronations and mid-range.
I'm in favor of that.
I'm in favor of leaving it as a general West March event rainy day fund, whether it's for coronations, mid-reigns, if say somebody wants to start up Flurbtastic again or West March Wars, there is money that is set aside that could help those events if petitioned properly.
All in favor of ousting the monarch?
I mean, I really think it would be nice if West March had that, and like anytime someone wants to run an overnight event, just have a splurb in the Kapora about, having to document it like the other ones, and then, return the funds, maybe even have a
Already
little
covered in the Kapora. There's a set of rules in the Kapora for just West March general events, and then there's specific rules for Dark Shore and Feast of Gods.
Yeah, none of these really need their separate accounts. But
yeah.
By the way, to more to Ian's question, Feast of the Gods made a profit of $5,890.88.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I'm just saying, as per this section,
Only
technically
400
they're only
of
allowed
that
to
should go into.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is something that should be on the next all thing, perhaps.
Well, the transfer is automatic. If they want to retain the funds in the event account, that needs the all thing.
Yes.
So
I think we need to look at the reason for that wording and make sure we're not just holding that wording over from when Dark Shore was Wave Haven's event and we were trying to allocate it to both West March and Wave Haven.
Yeah, I mean, really, I feel like this isn't a BOD object to talk about, really, but I mean, a percentage would be better, in my opinion.
So
yeah,
while we're in this section of the Kapora and we're on events, could we real quick look at the storage section?
Yeah. Yeah. We've definitely discussed that. We had a very lengthy discussion between buying a trailer and renting a storage shed close to King City. That
Okay.
Conversation never got past the discussion of what we should do.
So I have a suggestion, and this is going to require pricing things out and figuring it out. But have we looked into pods?
yeah.
That was similar to the idea of buying a trailer.
Right. But with a pod, we can say, hey, could you bring this to so-and-so's house because they're autocrating and they need to look through all of this. That's one of the benefits of it being a pod. And if, say, we don't want to keep it at a facility, someone wants to just keep it in their front yard, we can manage that.
I think the part of the conversation we had before was the concern of liability if we're letting people just hold on to event stuff at their house.
We actually,
which we've obviously been doing that for a long time, but
Sure.
I think that was part of the concern.
we've actually solved that in the past. So I know as Zeus, we explicitly have a contract with them in their mundane name. It's not even their Amcard name, that says
Sure.
that they are allowed to hold the Darkshore Castle, and they are responsible for maintaining it, to a certain level. So I know that West March has that for certain event items. It's not all event items, which we should probably do.
So I have heard how and where and the manner in which certain event assets have been stored and maintained at individuals' houses. And I'm looking at our numbers. We can afford some goddamn storage.
Yes, we can and we should. The Barony of
So-
Calafia for SCA spends about $20,000 a year on a 3,200-foot storage space. I think we can afford a 10 by 10.
I am in agreement. Can someone run the numbers on that and get back to me?
Paul actually ran the numbers for us previously, and we were looking at, and this is in the February and March notes.
Mhm.
It was like $120 a month for a storage spot in King City.
Okay. Can I
I
ask why that?
believe that the argument against that was actually that they use a lot of that stuff for their coronations and mid-reign events and stuff like that, and they didn't like the idea of having to drive to King City to pick it up.
Which is
goes
one of
in
the
with the
reasons.
pods thing that you were saying.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that I like about pods. Whoever on the BOD or in Monarchy could call them up, whoever's name is on it, and say, hey, we need this brought here. And it's a fee, but whoever is wanting that stuff to use the stuff, you pay the 100-something fee or whatever, depending on the mileage, and figure it out.
Do we have a volunteer to look up pod pricing and kind of put together a proposal for December?
Andy should do it. He did that for a living.
I didn't do that. I did other
I
things.
nominate Scoot. Is there a second?
Second.
We can probably get this before the meeting's over.
I would want something actually put together, like the details and the pricing, and maybe contact somebody to get like the full information instead of just a Google search.
Yeah, I would additionally like to see how much it would cost in terms of, say it's at the pod center and you want it moved from the pod center to Wave Haven or from Wave Haven to Crimson Wood. Something like that. That's the kind of information I would be looking at.
On the screen I'm sharing at the moment, pods start at $149 a month. Delivery and pickup fees average $75. So there you go.
Well, what do you know?
What's that?
Well, what do you know?
Yeah,
You can
but
get an
this
official
is
quote through their webpage.
yeah. We want
That's what I was about to. I was in
Yeah.
the process too.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yeah.
as another data point, a 10 by 10 storage at public storage at the same facility I use for my own stuff is $170 a month.
We can afford that.
Especially if we charge it to the event account.
What is the Kapora outline in terms of the event paying for its own storage? Where is that line and what's the percentage?
So the way there isn't a percentage for events. The way events all work is through bids. So basically you would have to say as part of like the bid package, they would be responsible for like the storage for the next 6 months. Really what it talks about is like there are certain dates. It's typically like 30 to 45 days ahead of the event. The event organizer is supposed to like pick up this stuff, inspect it to make sure that it's in good repair. Then they're supposed to run the event, and then after the event, they're supposed to like, clean it, repackage it, and transfer it back to the storage location. And it's typically, again, it's like in the 30 to 45 day time frame a lot of the time. But there's nothing about like the storage cost that would probably be part of like the bid package, or we would just have to add something.
So
feel
Milan
like
has it
we
up on
should
screen
add
right now.
The only thing in our Kapora about storage is that a storage unit may be provided for Feast of Gods and for Darkshore. That's all that's stated. There's nothing cost or anything else.
Let's see. The storage unit may be provided while they're not in use. The storage unit must be prepaid for 1 year in advance from event proceeds.
Okay.
If we can find out what that number is of a year in advance in proceeds, then we can see what is and isn't feasible. But
If
looking
you
at
can't-
our
if you
Well, that
numbers,
would just be the yearly cost.
It'd be 1,400.
I honestly think if we come up with a solution we want to implement, we should just do an all thing, change the Kapora to just say this is how the stuff is stored.
so
Yeah.
I'm currently hesitant to throw a bunch of new things at the Kapora right now in terms of onesie, twosie, all things, because I'm looking to try and completely change the Kapora.
No?
I'm a proponent of that, but ticky-tacky little changes, if they're emergencies, I think are okay, but this isn't a big thing.
Yeah.
If anything, if you have specific wording, get it to well, honestly, 3 of you are in that
I
chat.
was about to say, it's like most of us are here.
Ethan and Talon, but mostly, yeah.
Almost all of you are in that chat. Just write up the wording and drop it in a Word document and we'll figure it out. God.
I did want to close loop on one thing. So Paul, you had asked, when did that $400 discretionary amount come about, that where you keep the 400 net? And that came about in an all-in in August of 2017. So it is a newer set of wording.
Huh.
Yep.
It's a weird set of wording, to be honest, but
Yeah, at the
whatever.
discretion of the bid team, the $400. Yeah.
I'm not. Is it saying that like the bank account should only have $400? Because that's
No, it's the net profit.
counterintuitive.
At
So
the
should only
discretion of the bid team, up to $400 of the net profits above the cost may be retained in the event account to improve future events. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it means
Larger
that they're-
Doesn't that rely
it
so
means their
much on?
long-term balance can go only go up by 400 per event.
So
Doesn't
I
that
remember.
Feels
rely so
absurd.
much on
I-
expecting that the
I
same
re-
team's going to get the bid again, though? Like, why would
No,
a team ever care about that if they're not planning on running the next one?
inflation.
So
Uh,
I
well-
remember I remember the reasoning behind that is to make sure that event at one point we had, when Dark Shore was still a Wave Haven event, it had an excess of like $6,000 in funds, and they got hammered by the IRS because they mismanaged it all. And so the idea was to make sure that the excess money was going back into West March and not just building up in the event fund.
Yeah, it also
Okay.
is weird here because technically the money is always West March's because it's still in the West March bank account.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It
like
would
this whole-
actually make
yeah.
more sense to have a majority of the money in one of the savings accounts because that increases our interest over time. Whereas if we put it in checking, all it does is sit there. Like it would make more sense to have almost all our money in the event funds and not in the treasury.
The Treasury not have a savings account?
No, I'm saying put most of the money in the savings account and just keep, you know, part of the money in the actual treasury checking account, because the savings accounts, the more money you have in them, the higher interest rate you get, not interest rate, the higher interest
The more
payout.
interest you accrue if there's more
Yeah,
money in
I
it. Yes.
I get that. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is, does the Treasury not have a checking and a savings account independent of the event?
No,
It's all one
it
account.
only has a checking account.
Well, it's
Okay, well
so
that's a separate issue.
the
I
bank
feel like.
accounts are set up as 4 accounts. 1 is the general account, 3 are event accounts, and our savings accounts.
Yeah. The general account is a checking account, which we get no interest off of. And then the other accounts are savings account that we get interest off of.
I am going to point out though that even like the Feast of God savings account, according to the audit that's up on the screen, we made $1.50 last month in interest.
Yeah. Well,
So
like,
even with all that money, like if we really wanted to go that route, there are significantly better banks than Wells Fargo to
Yeah.
earn interest accrual.
We did
I'm just
research
saying
at
it
the
sounded-
beginning of the year
Hold.
about banks. We did research about banks at the beginning of the year, and unfortunately, there were no other viable banks besides the major banks that were accessible from Sacktown way up and back down. There wasn't a credit union that was in San Diego, that was also in San Francisco, and also in San Jose, and also in Sacramento. Please, if anybody can prove me wrong, I would be thrilled. But we were
Maybe
unable
Federal?
to find one.
I'm just saying right now we have $10,000 in the general fund and it's accruing 0 interest. Whereas we have $857 in a savings account that isn't allocated for anything. And that's making 11 cents interest. If we had like 8,000 of the general fund in the savings account and made that just a West March savings account, we'd be making interest and it still would be general fund.
We could it be $1 or $2 a month, I suppose. I could do that.
Does anybody have anything against moving the funds from the Kingdom Treasury to a savings account and leaving $2,000 in the checking account?
May I ask what it would hurt or change in the negative for doing that?
Treasurer and Prime Minister, can you answer that question?
As
It
long as
would
we didn't do
cause
an
up to a day delay if we needed to export more of it into checking.
it would also, if we did rapid like multiple transfers in a month, we could get hit with fees, but that I believe that's unlikely. We'd need to do, I believe, more than 6 transfers in a month.
Have we
That would
ever
be
had?
outgoing transfers, not ingoing
Correct.
transfers,
Like
right?
withdrawing stuff from savings, we would. It's a federal law or federal banking procedure. I'm not 100% clear, but it's a universal thing across savings accounts in general to prevent people from using them as checking accounts.
Right. Has there ever been, or can we foresee a reasonable instance where we're gonna need a lot of money in less than 24 hours?
We had that issue with Dark Shore this year.
I mean, the
At,
issue
at that
isn't
point, we
needing
would
a
just
lot
prepare
of
for the
money,
upcoming event.
It's needing multiples of money. Like if we needed to transfer most of the money from savings to checking as one transfer, that would be totally doable. It's when we need to do 7 transfers in a month that it would start to be a problem.
Right. Okay.
And to my understanding, it actually Wells Fargo's availability, as long as it's early enough in the day, is same day. So like if we transferred, I think it's before 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something, it's available that same day, and we wouldn't have problems like that as far as the day delay.
Then I literally don't understand the issue, so I'm for it.
Yeah, let's move
Sure,
the
okay, I'll
Kingdom
do it.
Treasury. Go for it, James.
Yes, this will do.
No, I said I'll do it. I'm doing it now.
Phenomenal.
You're amazing. Perfect.
Are you
All right,
do
I'm
you want
gonna
to create a
say-
new account, James, or just
I'll use the savings that's not going anywhere right now.
Perfect.
all right.
I'm going to put forth a motion to move on from the audit update to the next topic, just because we are an hour and 15 minutes into the audit.
Woohoo!
Do we have a second on moving on?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. There's a lot of information that's come up here. Andy is going to volunteer to get pod pricing. Thank you very much for that. Victoria
Thistledown
mentioned
already
why
do it?
not event packets. That's a wonderful idea. We're going to work on that. And there's something I'm going to do. Oh yeah, the cost for translation of a waiver. Awesome. BOD nominations. All right, so we have elections that are going to be run by Thistledown in January, unless I'm wrong. I don't believe I am. We have some people in this meeting that have expressed interest in running to join the board of directors. This is their opportunity to say anything that they want at this point in time. You don't have to say anything, but the floor is yours if you wish. There are a couple in the room.
Bear wishes to run for a position in our BOD to assist West March.
Woo!
Yay!
All right, I got 1 cheer. All right, 2 cheers. All right, there we go.
I think you got more. We were just all on mute.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm just
you,
dead
West March.
inside and don't have cheering.
Oh,
I'm
digital
stuck here for
hockey,
6 months regardless, so.
Well, thank you for your work as defender of West March, obviously, and thank you for running the zombie prevention program. Lots of mirth was had. And thank you for getting Shire Gate kicked out of their park. That was 100% Sapolu Bear Bears' fault. So there you go.
I mean, to be
Yeah.
fair, our new park is actually a lot better in almost every way. So,
Except parking. It's worse at parking. I hate your
Well,
parking.
to be fair though, have you ever not been able to find eventually a parking spot? Because there were some times at Poinsettia that we were not able to find parking.
I never had an issue at Poinsettia in all the years I attended there. Not once, not even twice.
Street parking.
Yeah.
So you're saying I should come down south and get you guys kicked out of another park?
No. You're banned. You're banned for coming down. Stop. No. Sebastian, do you have any thing that you would like to add?
Oh, I'm running? Okay.
You have discussed potentially doing so. I know
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, sure, why not? I'll throw my hat in. Basically, a lot of you know me from working on the Capora reviews and doing all of that fun audit paperwork. So
You
know
like
that
paperwork. Good prerequisite.
yeah. I'm good at reading paperwork and hopefully remembering and explaining it later. So there we go.
Ethan did a really big thing. He did a review of all the Kaporas that has already come in handy for literally all of AmpGuard when somebody said, hey, how do the tithings work? And how do the, explain that, Ethan. You're the one that did the response.
Yeah, so somebody came in and was like, hey, I'm trying to update the Amped Wiki page that talks about dues for all the lands. And I was just like, well, I've got a row in my spreadsheet that explains them all. Here you go.
So
Yeah.
Ethan is now the go-to person for all things AmpGuard across all 50 United States. Good job.
Yeah, something like that.
And Canada.
Oh, yeah, true.
And Canadian.
Although I will say I never really did get a response on for the kingdoms that have the entire tithe go to the kingdom, how do the parks support themselves? That one I'm still kind of curious about.
So
Yeah.
I don't remember any that were very explicit of the entire set of tithe goes directly to the kingdom. There were a lot of them that just said, here's the dues, and never even specified how tithes were handled. And it seems like those kingdoms have very small bank accounts, and that, like, the independent events actually have their own bank accounts. A lot of the kingdoms just said, like, or there was a handful that basically all use the same wording. It was like, we have to maintain a certain level of funding because it was like for an insurance or storage or something like that. And then there were several that just taxed a percentage of the overall, like, kingdom's annual budget to each land. So, like, every shire had to cough up 3% of the total kingdom budget, and every barony was 5%. It was a very odd. I don't actually know how the math worked in the end because it was very odd. And then there was a bunch that just never mentioned the word tithes at all.
Maybe the dues just went directly to the kingdom and the lands were shit out of luck, and that's how they did it.
There you go.
But then again, we
Yeah.
also have to understand most of the Kaporas that were created were on the basis of a static crown system.
And a lot of them are much smaller physical wise. Like, they're not nearly as spread out. Like, a lot of them had Aldings that were 2 or 3 times a year in person.
Because it used to be the Kingdom of Dragonspine was this one park in New Mexico somewhere, and only they were allowed to vote, and only they were allowed to run for kingdom office, and only they were allowed to be on the BOD. And
Well,
that's
even
how
the floating crown ones. Most of the Kaporas are actually floating crown, and most of the Kaporas still use the centralized Alding because they would do it like at the mid-reign or at the coronation, and they just assume that most voting members would travel to those.
It's crazy to me.
I mean,
But I
California's
guess
a
that
very
is
large
how
place.
FAM was working basically until COVID. So
Well, everybody nominate Ethan for all the awards because what he did was just crazy awesome. I'm in awe of the free time that he has. He must have a very boring life. I'm joking. Is there anybody else that would like to speak up about joining the BOD next year or running to join the BOD next year?
I would just note that I haven't been as active as I was hoping to be, so I apologize for that. But I would like to stick around. Even if I'm not a member of the board, I'm happy to pop in at BOD meetings. If you guys want to chat about things, just let me know.
We need more smart people because we need people to offset me. So yes, you're here whether you like it or not.
Fun times.
All right. We're gonna move on. We did the BOD nominations, the bilingual flyer. We're gonna talk very briefly about the West March safety statement. Is that okay? Does anybody have a second?
hit me.
All right. I think I heard something.
Hit me.
Okay. We did a statement in August that I got kind of approved by the monarchy at the time. Nobody else was willing to sign it, so I threw my name at the bottom. I would like to submit this to anybody who's interested in working on it. By the way, hello, Jody. Thank you for joining us as always. You are the best. I would like.
Hello, I'm just watching.
Sure you are. Probably reporting to Northern Lights or something. To the wetlands. This is a zero tolerance policy on unacceptable issues. It was kind of written kind of quickly, but I would like this to be altered by the right people to be an inclusivity and zero tolerance policy against all sorts of bad things. Is there anybody that would like to potentially work on this document to update it that are more qualified than me?
I would like to work on it in a committee fashion, preferably with a lawyer if she's willing.
I'm super happy to be involved. I don't know if I'm more qualified than anybody else, but I enjoy using fancy words.
I don't want us to say anything that would be violating any federal or state laws. So I feel like that has value inherently. Also, you are a woman in AmpGuard, and that also brings its own value to diversity and inclusion.
There you go.
I move
And
to
I
push
like
this
big
item off to the
words.
monarch.
You can't push it off on me if I'm already volunteering, Scoot.
Wow, no seconds. This is brutal.
Well, that sounds like
I think
a
they
benevolent.
seconded themselves.
That sounds
And
like a benevolent dichotomy.
Wait a
I
second.
vote that Scoot has to be part of this committee.
I vote that Scoot shouldn't be part of the committee.
Wait a second. Hold on. Gotta get it.
Don't stop. Get it.
it's really weird that that chair is participating in our meeting.
I have the shiny hat, and I say,
What?
Who gave Scooch a shiny
What?
hat?
look at my friend, pretty shiny hat.
That is pretty.
Uh-huh.
Why can I not make you full screen?
So, all jesting aside, I really liked this document, but it was cranked out in a night and then looked over by a couple people. I would just really like this to be updated and kind of made an official thing, of which it is not at all. So if people can work on it that are more qualified than me, which is literally everyone, that would be great. Okay. So please get with Monarch Scorch, Baron Scorch, about getting part of that committee and writing it up. It is hosted at all times on the Amped Wiki West March BOD, where I throw everything. Advertise. Anyways, I'd like to move on to the digital PO box update. Anybody got anything against that?
Nope.
All right. We do or do not need an all thing for the yearly payment of the digital PO box, which is now active. I'm going to ask Tirza and James for an update on that, please.
I am in it right now looking at it. We have not received any mail. We might want to test that and someone send it some mail. But at the moment it's empty. As far as all things, it is well under the discretionary cutoff.
All right, everybody send hate mail to Westmarch.
Done.
I mean, I wouldn't hate having an all thing to add paying for stuff like that not being part of the kingdom's discretionary fund, because it's an ongoing expense, and I feel like discretionary funds should be for discretionary things, not, stable, long-term costs of things that we use every single year.
I feel like kingdom maintenance shouldn't have to go up for a vote every year or every 6 months. That feels a little insane.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we should add something that says, hey, this isn't a discretionary expense. It is a standard expense that the king doesn't have to decide every month, I'm going to pay this. Because the way it is technically, if it is under the discretionary expenses, that means the king is deciding every month, hey, I should pay this.
We pay once a year. It's not once a month in February, just to let you know.
Roger.
Okay, but still,
it still cuts into that month what they can do.
Can I make a suggestion here?
Yes.
So because there are things that will be monthly, like if we get the IT committee, they may have, monthly server expenses or something like that, right? So there was one Kapora I read that I actually really liked, where they talked about that every year the BOD will put together, it was like the BOD or the monarchy, which is also on the BOD, will put together like an annual estimated expenses, and it will be voted on one time in that year to say, here's like the budget for those types of maintenance expenses.
I like that.
James, can you send me the mailing address or drop the mailing address in chat?
Where'd you come?
Could I ask Victoria a potentially legal question?
Potentially.
Yes. I don't know
Potentially legal sounds sketch.
what California state BODs do they have discretion over maintenance of things? Is that like do other BODs that are under state scrutiny have to have some sort of voting or exterior approval to pay the electricity or the rent every month for whatever other organization they be working for? Or is that just something that they're permitted to do?
That is a fantastic, potentially legal question.
Mm.
That is something that I would have to look into because my expertise is in criminal law. So most of the things that we talk about is my thoughts, not necessarily my advice.
Understood.
But I'm happy to look into that. I imagine that it would depend on, similarly to how we have a corpora, it would depend on what their bylaws are, where obviously California has laws specific to nonprofits and different kinds of nonprofits. Typically, these corporations have their own bylaws that establish how things are going to work and flow. So if their bylaws said something similar, then it would suggest that they have to go through their membership to determine how those funds are going to get spent or where it's going to go and yada yada.
So your unprofessional legal not advice of a potential legal question is it could just very well come down to what the Corpora says.
Yes.
Understood.
And in my reading of other things, that is basically aligns exactly with what I read, which was the BOD can be bound by rules set like within their bylaws as far as like expenses and things like that.
It just feels a little absurd that we would have to have any kind of things that we are required to have, like the PO box or a bank account, that we're required to seek exterior permissions to pay for those things
It's
specifically.
not exterior though. It's from all of the members that compose this organization. And it's specifically how we decided to run ourselves. It's our own internal policy on how to do this.
No, I hear you.
If we just put it up for one all thing, and we've done this before because we did it for Smart Waiver. Can we spend $99 a year for our digital mailbox? As long as we get one all thing done, that's it. So that should be on. I mean, technically, we should put it on all thing because it wasn't put on an all thing previously. And that was the 2022 board of directors that said it should be Monarch discretionary funds.
Because that was just to try and get it through the door initially.
And we didn't get it activated until James took it head on and activated it with Andy's help.
I see.
And that just happened 2 months ago.
Right. That was miscommunication between me and the then Prime Minister on who was actually supposed to finish up on the paperwork and stuff for it. Okay. And I didn't realize that it hadn't been followed up. So I did it once I became PM.
Understood.
Yep. Worked out great. All right. So ledger request update for all parks as per previous Monarch. The previous Monarch wanted to see a ledger from all parks. That Monarch is no longer Monarch. So we want to re-request to continue this audit. And I'm going to ask that of the Monarch. Is that something you would like us to continue, or should we take a step back from it?
Before you answer that, would you like a list of who has responded and who has not?
I mean,
I'm going to ask a clarifying question. Are you asking if we should continue to periodically audit people like on a consistent schedule? Is that the question?
The question would be, we are waiting for several parks. We're trying to finish a audit right now. And there's several
Understood.
parks which have not proven that they have a ledger for their funds or that they're tracking their own funds.
Gotcha. Okay. Then from there, hit me with the people that haven't filled in their audit.
All right. Clockwork Spires gave no ledger and no votes. Faldair gave no ledger and passed on votes. Misty Vale gave no ledger and no votes. Quixotic Valley did put in votes but did not give me a ledger. Valon gave me a ledger but no votes. Wave Haven gave me neither.
Okay. So I'm of the opinion that if they have not voted and have not given a ledger, then I don't see a problem. If they just want to exist without getting money from anyone or giving money and just all their officers are pro tem, go with LeGroux. Like, I don't care. But the people that have given votes, that's gonna have to be a more serious conversation.
Okay.
Why would
The
their
only one
officers
is
need to be pro tem?
the only one in that situation is Quixotic Valley then.
All right. What was someone said something else?
Why do the officers need to be pro tem?
Because you are pro tem if you do not pay dues,
Correct.
and if they are not paying
Well, actually-
dues and putting forward money. If there's money, my thought process is if money is coming in, they've got to record it somewhere. If money isn't coming in, but they still need officers to make their park run, if they're all pro tem, I don't care. And you can be pro tem and not pay dues if no
It's
one else is
not-
running.
It's not accurate.
That's
not?
not accurate.
The corpores got broke away from that a while ago.
Okay.
It's actually harder to become pro tem. You have to have more things completed than to just run normally.
That feels asinine. So what if nobody is qualified?
They're left
Yes.
empty.
They just don't have officers?
Yes.
Yeah, this led to a
Yeah.
whole thing like a few months ago. We were trying to figure this out.
There was actually a discussion on the West March Facebook about it, where a bunch of people put up their opinions of what they thought pro tem was, and Ethan came through telling them that that wasn't actually what our Kapora says. And then they're like, well, we don't want to change the Kapora, but we also don't believe that that's what pro tem is, which was kind of a funny conversation.
And this is why I'm rewriting the Kapora, because it's stupid and bad and wrong. Okay.
On the screen right now, if no one is qualified to run for office, and all things shall be held to appoint pro tem officers. All officers have to have a Reeves test and a Kapora test and be a voting eligible member of their land. To be voting eligible, you have to be dues paid. So if there's nobody that is dues paid, then technically these offices are left vacant.
And then technically the BOD or like we're supposed to vote to technically like remove the contract or demote them for not being qualifying land. Like it's a whole thing.
Which also gets into weirdness of, but they have a monarch who is issuing awards and stuff, but not a real one.
That's actually somewhat more interesting because if they have no officers, who's collecting dues?
Right.
Yeah. Well, you can pay directly to the kingdom, but yes.
I hate all of this.
So do we.
If it makes you feel any better, absolutely no one seems to actually follow the rules of what it means to be pro tem, and just kind of goes with the other answer of if you don't qualify in any way, you run as pro tem, which isn't accurate, but that's how culturally we do it.
I think that comes
how
back.
it should be.
And
Do
I think that actually comes
continue.
back from an older version of the Kapora, which I
Yeah.
believe allowed that. I'd have to go double check that, but I believe that a like 2015 version or something like that allowed that, which is what like everybody seems to be following.
Yeah.
This is unfortunately what happens when you change the Kapora to not go with the culture of Amp Guard, which is people just don't follow it. They go, nah, Thanks anyway, dude.
And then
I'm
we're
good,
weirdly
bro.
strict about things that nobody wants to follow, but then we don't give a shit about other things we also don't want to follow. Like this is insanity.
What
Yeah.
comes in here is if they fail to pay tithes to the kingdom, they cannot vote in kingdom elections. But it doesn't say anything about like local elections, which is just
Yeah.
an interesting thing, because it doesn't tie back to dues paid or voting member eligibility as far as being able to vote. They just can't vote in kingdom because they haven't tithed.
Yeah. Well, that part I do actually remember being specifically written in, because when the question of whether or not the South would be able to vote in kingdom stuff came up, there was a large body of people who were of the opinion that the South just wouldn't ever want to do it, and they wanted to leave an ability for Southerners to not have to pay tithes if they didn't care about kingdom stuff. Ironically, a situation that hasn't ever really come up, because I can't think of any election where the like Southern parks have not on majority voted.
Anyways,
But that's how that got added to the Kapora and why.
One other quick thing is that because we removed the annual audits, this is actually following under the 9.2 section about audits, which is just that audits are used to assess the land health and that and ensure that they're running smoothly. And the monarch may initiate an audit of any sponsored chapter at any time to ensure smooth operations. It doesn't say anything about punishment. It doesn't say anything about like what happens if they fail to submit audits.
So I mean, I am of the opinion that the old audits were all stick and no carrot. It was fraught with inconsistencies, and no one agreed on what any one thing that was asked of the individual lands to be consistent across varying BODs. I think it was a trash system the way it was implemented. I also am seeing post-COVID how things are not running smoothly, how we are missing audits and getting votes put in, but they aren't technically qualified to put in those votes, but they're still being counted and such and so.
To be fair, that was mostly on the kingdom side, though. That's not something the audit system would have caught anyway. Because the audits, oddly enough, didn't care about that.
You're correct. The audits didn't care about the land health. They just cared about holding that sort of Damocles over your head to demote you.
Well, I mean, the audits didn't care about voting members, voting. Like, it wasn't, you had to list all the voting members you'd had for tithing, but not who was eligible to vote and who wasn't, like, at any time.
Or whether or not you tithed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say for context, this whole thing is in like all of section 9, which is all about like sponsored chapters, and that section also heavily talks about like the promotion and demotion system. And so based on my reading of it, the audit would be to audit lands for promotion and demotion to make sure that they're meeting the requirements. And if for whatever reason the monarch wanted, but really it seems to be mostly tied to the promotion demotion system based upon my reading.
100%.
9.2, the monarch may initiate an audit of any sponsored chapter at any time. The monarch may request other monarchy members or the BOD to assist with the audit. So
and then on the next page, so that's 9.2.1 and 9.2.2, and then 9.2.3 is all about promotion demotion, and 9.2.4 is about what types of things can be like our standard requests in an audit. So to me, when you read those together as a block, it's like, here's what audits are for, or like here's how who can request audits, here's what they're for, aka promotion demotion, and then like here's like the type of information that could be in audits. That's how I read that.
Like, I think that is an entirely accurate description of what audits were used for in the kingdom.
Yeah.
It wasn't to see if lands were healthy. It wasn't to make sure that they were actually like collecting money correctly. It was to decide if we promote, demote, or leave you as you are.
So if I can step in, the question here was, does the current monarch still want a ledgers to be submitted?
Of the lands that have not yet submitted, Yes. I don't think that I don't think that we need to harass the parks that have been good in submitting those things.
Great. And do you need the BOD's help to look at those ledgers at all?
That would be preferred.
Because I mean, otherwise they're just going to Thistledown.
Right.
I'm sorry, 1 second.
Well, like, what are we wanting to look at the ledgers
Hang on.
for?
The initial request from the previous monarch was that, do you have an active and updated ledger, and are you in compliance with all the necessary financial steps as per the Kapora? That was the extent of the request.
Do we have those steps written somewhere that we can compare it against?
I believe that the entirety of the requirement in the Kapora is have a ledger.
That's it. And people have been sucking at that.
Well, I wouldn't say people have been sucking at it. I would say a few parks have not submitted ledgers, and they're all really small parks anyway, with possibly the exception of Clockwork.
Clockwork is one of the few baronies left in the kingdom. I would expect better of them.
Yeah.
I do want to quickly clarify about that statement about that they must have a ledger. That's, in my opinion, it's barely in the Kapora because it's in the kingdom contract for the land, which is included in the Kapora as here's the standard contract.
Yeah.
But that's the only place it actually says a land must maintain a ledger.
But it's in the contract that they agreed to.
Yeah.
Which is where it gets sticky because no one often references the contract for what they're supposed to do.
And that contract has other issues in other areas.
Didn't we just fix that contract?
No, we bitched about it a lot and then didn't do anything.
No, the contract got the Corpora contract got updated.
Did it?
Yeah, I could have sworn it did. So I haven't
Well,
been a part of a ton of those meetings, but that was one of them.
I feel like
was all thing vote.
Loops back very similarly to what we were just talking about with regard to events and how we try to create more of a standardized ledger system and audit system for that. Do we have a standardized ledger system for parks?
Yes, and it's painful and everybody hates it.
So have we considered
Also,
maybe
no.
No, we don't have a standard ledger system. There is no template except for one that Milan has made, but it's not an official one. It's just one he whipped up to help people. But there's no like official, okay, this is the West March, ledger template.
I thought that was the official one.
No,
Is that not
There
official?
never was an official one.
No,
I
It
made
is
this
not
one
an
right
official
here for
one.
people to use.
It hasn't been voted on. Wasn't created in an official manner. It's just literally something Milan made, which was very nice of him and is very nice, as far as ledgers go. But there aren't
Well, and our
list of
Kapora
rules per
explicitly
ledger.
allows more than one ledger type.
Yeah.
Rose
sure.
is in the middle of speaking.
It's okay. This thing is relevant. Because there are a lot of lands that have like physical ledgers still. A lot of other lands have moved to digital ones. I actually like the digital, but I can also see the physical because a lot of lands do not have good IT infrastructure. So like SG is on its second email because the first one we lost the password to and no one set up a backup email. So that would suck a lot more if that was like the drive that your ledger was stored on. We've fixed that by backing up the email to another email now, but.
So I know, for example, when I was monarch of the Shire of Valley of the Fallen, the way we handled it was a physical ledger because it was just kept in the binder. And so when people added money, we just say, $5 dues from so-and-so. And like, it was just done. Didn't have to think about it. Didn't have to like go back to your house and type it into an Excel spreadsheet.
Wavering Spur basically does the same thing.
Well, back when I was with Aureus Altus more officially, we did something similar. We would just handwrite it to make sure. But my thought process was if we're expecting all of these folks who are obviously volunteers and probably not as savvy as someone who typically deals with this kind of stuff, maybe we give them those resources just make
Absolutely, it's a great idea.
Hmm.
I agree with
Especially-
you, Victoria.
start auditing them for it by just asking for these ledgers.
I mean, one idea I had a while ago was we could just set up a ledger on like West March and have a tab for each land and have them just put their numbers in there. But
Yeah.
I don't know how popular that would be. There are a lot of people who are very into the physical ledgers.
Well, there's no reason they couldn't have a physical one and then have their prime minister copy it onto the drive, because then it keeps it public.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like that there's something that we could do in teaming up with the IT team / Azus and figure out a way to make that easily accessible and viable.
Yeah,
I
we should
mean,
have a tab on the CA AmpGuard webpage where everybody can access everyone's ledgers.
yeah, it would
I-
be really easy to do a Google Sheet too. That's how SG's ledger
The
is. It's
problem-
stupid easy.
The thing is that you're going to have 20 PMs that are rotating every 6 months.
Right.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Not only that, but if it's something that you could just go in and alter, then someone else could do it, and it's not
There's
official.
potential for malfeasance there. Yeah.
There's potential for malfeasance, but there's also at that point you would need to give each CA AmpGuard account special permissions, and I don't know if that's something that the IT team would want to handle every 6 months, or what if somebody has to leave and they abdicate and someone else has to come in and then handling it again. I feel like there's something in there, like it's got good bones, but it's not fully fleshed out. Does that make sense?
Right.
I mean, if we had money, we could have someone set up an access database, at which case we could have a front end that people fill out that doesn't allow them to get to the back end, and then have the back end display on another spot. But that's kind of expensive.
Yeah, that was a
I mean,
thing
if
I was
every, if
considering.
every
But
land can keep their own ledger, I think that resolves the issue. It's like, hey, Clockwork Spires, do you have a ledger? Hey, Sierra Gata, do you have a ledger? Hey, Valley of the Agreement's Fortress, do you have a ledger? Like that shouldn't
really
be
need to pick a new
difficult,
name.
in my opinion. I don't think we need to go further than that.
Mhm.
But
It's one of the suggested ones, yes.
In terms of Clockwork specifically, to try to get back on the initial question, I am going to be visiting them this weekend, so I
Okay.
can have a sit down with the PM and see what's
Love it.
going on.
love it. All
Quick
right,
side note.
cool.
Do know that Clockwork starts at 10 in the morning.
Yep.
Oh my
Moving
God,
on.
why?
Nobody
Because-
knows.
Because
no,
otherwise temperature is terrible.
I do, right, because when it's summertime, it's still bearable at 10, and they usually knock off like right before 3, so they still get a good amount of hours of AmpGuard in
Gosh.
before your skin melts off.
Okay.
I would not be able to play there. I hate mornings. Mornings are evil. Ugh.
I know Crimsonwood used to be an early morning park too.
Yeah, or your salt is
I would love that. I get up at 5 in the morning, so 10 sounds great.
I go to bed at 5 in the morning.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I'm more with Ethan. I would be all for playing at like a midnight park. That would be pretty cool. We could all get there, have some lights, nice and cool temperatures.
Dinner at a park day.
Sapolo-
Come on.
Sapolo and I, Bear and I are going to do coffee and stick. That's our new park. All right,
Sounds
we're almost at
good.
2 hours, so I'm going to request that we move on from the ledger request to the next one. Is everybody okay with that, or is there anything else we'd like to discuss about the ledger request?
No, go for it.
All right, I apologize for pushing forward. I just want to be respectful of everybody's evenings. Should we seek feedback from Westmarch as a whole if we want to play test V9? There has been some communication about hesitancy about putting forth trying out V9 from some of the Westmarch members. I am not one of them. I believe Frankie may still be in the meeting. Does anybody have any statements about that?
I don't feel that this is within the board of directors' purview.
Perfect.
I also
It's
feel
really not.
like before we push to have people play test, the rule book that they're supposed to play test should move to a place where it's not being updated daily.
Is going to be continue to be updated daily until at least July. That is the
And
point of an alpha
therein lies the
that
playtest.
question.
is horrifying, and no one's ever going to be able to do that.
Yeah, so they're right now actively in the process of moving it to the wiki page, off of the original document. The reason they did the document was the wiki page takes a long time to do the transition. You have to write every page. You can't save them, blah, blah, blah. So they released the document so everybody could have access to all the rules all at once instantly.
Sure.
And then now they're moving it to the wiki page, which is where it is. It's always been a living document and will continue to be until the official ICOM vote to make it an official playtest. And that's when they could potentially start actually stabilizing to make it a document. A lot of the people on the V9 committee are also the people who write the V8 rules doc, and it takes them a month to make every change in the V8 rules doc. That's why it's such an arduous process, because of like formatting and layouts. And they did not want to do that with V9 so they could be rapid and respond to changes. So it will not be stable for a while.
Right, but at that point, nobody can print out a physical copy to bring to their park so that they can actually play the damn thing.
Yeah.
I made some physical copies in a very nice format for Indrain. They do require a little bit of updating per the updates that come out, but it is not that hard to catch their changelog.
Okay.
You are also in luck because I don't think they've updated since Midrain because they've been focusing purely on the wiki transition.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other quick statement here.
Mhm.
As the champion of West March right now, I am running a series of battle games at each park, and my plan was to run them in V9 unless I could get nobody to attend, and then I'd run one in V8. But I'm hoping to run at least one V9 game at each land.
Yeah.
I have also gotten a lot of the naysayers on board with the understanding of like, hey, I know you're not happy, but we need you to play test it. And by play test it, I mean try to break it, because that's literally what our job is right now anyway. And they were a lot happier about that. So
I don't have any problem with like people playing it. I'm just saying like expecting and coming out with a statement that like we expect of our parks to when it keeps on changing. There's a like I don't have that expectation of people. Like the change log may be good for people who are super into it, but
this is also not in the BOD's purview, but it was a question that came up, so I wanted to answer it really quick.
May I approach King Scorch?
Say again?
May I approach King Scorch?
Oh, ask you to approach.
Sure.
Yeah, we all talk over each other. I just want to make sure I can speak clearly to you. Just an idea. If we're wanting to get data for the V9, is it possible under your hand and your power to make it a double credit event? Just an idea, nothing for you to answer right now. I just figure I'd share that idea with you. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me the floor.
I'll consult my GMR and champion about that.
The answer is yes, you have the power, but you're not required to in any way.
Yeah.
My question would be, is this a statement of all playtests would be double credit or specific events of visiting?
That's something that I'm going to need to talk to my prime minister and GMR about. I'm not opposed to the idea, but it's going to take some hammering to answer questions like that. But because it's not in the BOD purview, I don't want to take up more time than we already are.
Fair enough. Thank you, King.
So duty of inquiry from California Code, which is driven from 5231. The director's obligation to make reasonable inquiry provides the directors cannot close their eyes to the activities of the organization. If they are put on notice by the presence of suspicious circumstances, they may be required to make such reasonable inquiry as an ordinarily prudent person would make under similar circumstances. This is what I did in July for a certain document that we talked about previously, which was the West March Amp Guard safety statement. This is what I had presented for why is the board of directors delving into this? And it's straight out of the duty of care and the duty of inquiry. This, again, is not under the purview. I agree with that, but it was a question that was brought forth, and that's why it's here.
I'm just glad I don't have to do anything and y'all are taking care of it for me.
Oh, should we officially appoint Dagger as the V9 rules rep?
Yes. Second.
I think we should make Dagger the official West March complaint department, just him, nobody else. All complaints must route through him first.
I also think that should come with a
Hooey.
custom award that does not ladder to any other award.
I think that's within the
What?
king's purview.
Wait,
And I'm
wait.
not dealing with it right now.
I have a better one. I believe we should create a custom award that, as you ladder up, removes other ladder awards. So you can never take knighthood with it, but it can drastically defeat your ability to get knighthood and other things.
Can you call that the Order of the V9?
I'd call it the Order of the V6, really.
I
Very
liked
good.
V6.
I did as well. Okay, forecast 2024. This has also been brought up specifically on Facebook. Should the monarchy or the board of directors, I don't care who, should we seek feedback from Westmarch if we want to dabble in exploring becoming a 501c3? Is this something that people should just move forward on, or should we do an all thing vote? Should we look into being a 501c3 instead of just assuming that that's what the organization wants to do?
I don't think it ever hurts to get people's feedback.
Well, I think it would be better for us to be a C3. Yeah, we should put out feelers.
I don't think if we do it as an all thing item, which I would prefer all thing, even if we like opened it up to non-voting members being allowed to participate, but like using the same standard of like the PMs run it at their park, not using what some people have done in the past of an online survey, as those are terrible metric for actually getting feedback from all different demographics.
I very much want to interject that I don't think non-voting members should get a say in things like this. I think if you want to have a say, you should become a voting member. That it probably sounds harsh, but it's something that I feel strongly about.
Fair enough. I'm just saying mostly like, even if it wasn't technically an all thing, the way we run it, because we want feedback, not just a yes or no answer. Like, I severely feel it should be run by the local PMs and not through like an online survey that people would have to go to and fill out.
Absolutely. No Survey Monkey, Tripe, or anything like that.
Yeah, maybe instead of calling it Alding, you call it a poll or something. Certain Kaporas do actually differentiate those two, although like an Alding versus a polling.
Yep. I'm going to put up a comment from Andy Brown. This is a pretty good comment here. Andy, would you like to read this out, or would you like me to read it, or just leave it in chat?
Andy is unaware that he's currently muted and is saying a lot of stuff.
Hi. So I can say it in a shorter method. Really, when we talk about the availability of files, this sort of goes back to ledgers and such. Sorry, everybody. When we talk about the availability of files and the availability of this person needs to be able to access it, but they need to not be able to access this other thing, and really the tools for that type of operation do exist. I use them at work. At work we use Microsoft 365. I know Google Suite has a similar thing, although I've never used it, so I'm not sure the exact. But I can go in and we have a file structure and it's available through the cloud, and I can give these 5 people access to this file and the ability to change it. I can give these 8 other people the ability to view it but not change it, and it's really quite easy to implement because there's a centralized person, me, that can assign permissions and make sure, if this person loses their password, then I can reset it for them. If this person moves out of the company and a new person moves into that position, then I can change what person has access. So, I mean, I know spending money is unpopular for us, but if I was going to do that, I would set up this type of system where we have a centralized file that we can assign permissions to people individually.
That was something that I wanted to ask after at some point, whether or not we should invest in something like Google Suite.
I mean, the way we do it right now is honestly a crapshoot, and I hate to say that because it's free and it's been functional mostly. But like, for instance, how many people have Rose? How many people have the SG Google Drive password?
Me and Milan, and probably you because you didn't forget it, and I haven't changed it.
I
So,
I don't have it.
You
How
do
many-
have it
have
'cause you
it
don't
is
remember it?
in your messages inbox, but you may not remember it.
Okay.
even
Whereas
better,
Glenn technically doesn't have it anymore, but he does because he remembers all my passwords.
how many people have the Dragonville account password and username? The answer is more than should currently.
That is
But
correct.
changing it, and I mean, we could just change the password and then have everybody re-log in, but everybody's logging in as one entity, which is not the proper way to do things securely.
Hmm.
So
agree.
just that's why I was saying like the structure for the cheapest option that would actually honestly work just fine for us is $6 a month per person that we would, or per account really. So like if we had, you know, the West March Monarchy have their own accounts, and then, you know, say maybe 2 Monarchy members from each park have an account, it's like it's not more than we make out of Dark Shore or Feast of Gods.
Here's a
And
question.
Mhm.
As a 501c3, would we have access to discounted or even free services
Yes.
that do that sort of thing?
couldn't
Discount,
tell you, but
yes.
possibly.
Okay. If someone's hard yes, then I'm gonna say okay.
I can say yes to the discount because I have my own 501c3 and I get things like half off of Zoom, which is why we're in Zoom right now.
Mhm. And 501c7 does not have access to these kinds of discounts and privileges, correct?
That is
Not
correct.
generally.
All
Because
right.
we are a club, not an educational or religious or anything like that.
All right. That is something that I would like to
Oh wow, look at that.
add and look
Microsoft
into.
365 is basic is free for nonprofit staff.
Does 501c7 count as that discount?
I haven't gotten that far yet.
We'd have to check
keep looking
that
into that.
it's
Keep looking into that, and then we can move on.
because
Drop a
7
comment
is
once you have
not
info.
for profit, not non-profit. So that would be the thing to really look into. If not for profit, for them gets the same discount as non-profit.
Awesome.
And
All right, guys.
I believe
reached-
the question was, do we want to just approve it, or do we want to talk to the populace and have them approve it? Correct.
Do we
As
want to
far as
put
going-
feelers out to see if this is something they would be interested in mass, rather than
Yeah.
assuming?
I feel like getting responses instead of just yes, no would be really good. To know what people who are against it are concerned about. Instead of just no, I don't want to do it. Because if there's some things that they're concerned about that possibly, you know, we could work on alleviating the concerns, that would be good.
I agree. That is something that I think that we should come up with a wording to throw up on the Facebook so that we can have a kingdom discussion at best, and maybe throw up an all thing.
Love it. All right, so we are at the end of the agenda for November. We are going to ask if anybody wants to add topics. We're going to schedule our December meeting and adjourn. As a quick note here, we're going to go through everything. We get credits. Thank you very much. Welcome to King Scorch. For the audit update. That took a very long time. I think it's amazing that George made a 5K profit at Feast of the Gods. Good Lord, somebody nominate that person for awards. Andy is going to look up pod pricing. I am going to work on event audit packets, and I'm going to trick Victoria into helping me. I'm going to look up the cost for translation of the waiver that Talon had worked on. Ethan did some great stuff with the Kapora. Ethan, Bear, and Victoria are all going to be running for the board of directors. Let's mail something to the
I believe
digital
Talon was
PO box.
also running for board of directors.
What's that?
I believe Talon was also running for board of directors.
That's right. Thank you very much for that, Ethan. I did not intentionally mean to miss Talon. Should we seek feedback for V9? Nope, don't worry about that. Yes, let's get a ledger request, but King Scorch is going to be working on that. We need to get some feelers for the 501c3, and Andy's going to look into the cost for Google Suite. That's it. Do we want to add any topics to the November board of directors meeting, which will be the last of the year? Or do you want to email those to me privately later if you come up with any?
Do you mean December?
December?
Yes, December. My apologies, people. Email them to me if you think of any. That's how we get them normally. I added a toast, so everybody bring your favorite beverage to the December meeting so we can toast out the year. Well done there. All right, here's the calendar. When should we do a December meeting?
Christmas Eve.
I will kill you, and then you'll be dead.
I mean,
I like
why?
Wednesdays, but
So 12/20 or 12/27 then?
27, I cannot do.
So 20 I think makes more sense anyways.
only 3 weeks from now. Okay.
What was
I mean, there's only 4 weeks left in the year, so.
Yeah. All right, 20 sounds fine.
20th?
All right. The 20th.
Yeah, I can do the 20th.
Is 6 p.m. acceptable? Do we want to do earlier? Do we want to do later?
I feel like 6 gives enough time to like get home from work and try to have some food.
6 works for me.
Sure.
Works fine for me as well. Everybody, we did 2 hours in the meeting. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Sapolu Bear. That sounds great for him as well. Is there any closing statements that we would like to discuss? Is there anything that we did not go over that we need to go over further? Any jokes or anything of that nature before I stop the recording?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Go ahead, Rose.
I was just going to say, make sure to tell your friends mucho. It means a lot to them.
Mucho?
Yeah, tell your Spanish friends mucho.
It means a lot. Sure.
I hate you guys so much.
I was going to say that we should recommend a new form of punishment in the Capora, which is to read Black Spine's Capora and write a report on it.
I love this plan.
That's so horrible.
Uh,
Such a horrible Kapora.
Ethan,
would
will you
like-
link the Black
I feel like
Spire?
It's cruel and unusual punishment. I'm not sure about that.
Ethan, will you link the Black Spire Capora in the West March Discord so I can read it? I'm excited.
Do you not have access to the Google Drive I threw together that has every Capora in it?
He should.
Oh,
He
wait.
just probably.
Wait,
I'm
I'm
fine.
glad you asked. Let me scroll through the West March BOD. Where is it? Sebastian's collection of Kingdom Caporas.
Okay, cool. There's 3 documents in there all labeled Black Spire, and they all reference each other. I have a document I wrote somewhere that explains how the various titles of different people change depending on which document and which event you're in.
Oh,
For example, the Prime Minister has 4 different titles depending on where you are in the document.
I
love
hate
it.
to see that for me.
Yep.
Visit the AMP Wiki West March BOD page.
I would like to make a motion to not let Milan leave me. He has to stay in the BOD. I declare it.
I think there's a lot of really great folks out there, and I think if Victoria and Ethan aren't members and Talon aren't members of the board of directors, it would be a terrible thing. But
Porque no los dos, amigo. Porque no los
I
dos.
put my head in there. If you are running for the board of directors, you have to tell Thistledown. If you don't, it doesn't matter. And I have told Thistledown that I am running if needed. So there you go.
Thistledown, you heard that Milan is running. Just ignore.
I heard it. Yep.
Well,
I'm your witness.
At the end of the day, everybody here has value, and and also Andy is here. So
Absolutely.
You have to wait until you close the meeting and turn off the recording so we can talk like that.
that's true. All right, here we go. I'm turning off the recording. Do I have a second to end the meeting?
A second.
Second.
All right, thank you.